If you came to me and said, my husband ignores me when I try to talk to him, I would invite you over, and what I share in this video is what I would share with you over a cup of coffee. In this video, I will be sharing 5 reasons why your husband might be shutting down. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss our weekly videos every Wednesday. When a spouse emotionally withdraws over and over, it is an extremely common cause of divorce. It can become habit-forming, and if left unresolved, it will continue into a second marriage and subsequent intimate relationships. As Dr. Gottman explains in Why Marriages Succeed or Fail, this classical marital impasse is all too common. A wife seeking emotional connection from a withdrawn husband. How do couples fall into this pattern, and why are men usually the ones that withdraw? How can couples break this destructive pattern for good? The difference in my relationship is I'm actually the one who withdraws. So I will attempt to share what is going on in my head and how Russ deals with this behavior. When I would ignore Russ, most of the time it was due to some type of conflict we had experienced. I withdrew because I believed we wouldn't be able to work it out, or he would argue his point and I wouldn't feel emotionally safe to share my thoughts. So it was easier for me to ignore and pull away. I didn't want to be criticized. I didn't want to be blamed. I certainly did not want to revisit the conversation. So it was much easier to ignore and hope he wouldn't bring it up again. I mean, if it didn't go well the first time, why attempt a second time? I simply want the argument to go away and have us be okay. So yes, it's my attempt to maintain the relationship. I do care about Russ, and shutting down has been my way of ending the tension. But it only caused Russ more anxiety because his preference is to address it in the moment. You know, address it and forget it. So any delayed attempt by me to table the discussion left him in a perpetual state of anxiety. Unfortunately for Russ, the more he would pursue me to talk, the more I would shut down, and the more his anxiety would increase. It was a rough cycle we didn't know how to break. Both parties see the other partner as someone they care about. It's just that they have different survival skills at managing conflict or even dealing with low-level tension. But this type of behavior ends up making our partners feel unloved, hurt, and abandoned. And it can be very painful for them, which is why this emotional withdrawal can destroy relationships. Dr. Scott Woolley, a professor at Alliant International University in San Diego, California, he says every human being has basic needs for connection. We call them basic attachment needs. We all long to feel loved, to be cared about, to be respected, and to be valued. Think about it. The universal torture technique in all cultures is solitary confinement or isolation. If you want to break a prisoner down, you put them into solitary confinement, and when they do interact with a human, you make sure that the interaction is abusive, unpredictable, and destructive. A lot of times for couples, particularly in highly escalated situations where they don't have a lot of support outside the relationship, people feel very isolated. They feel very alone. The only real connection they have is fighting, which ends up being destructive. That's one of the reasons why this pattern undermines people's sense of safety, not only in the relationship, but in their world in general. It can cause a lot of trauma for people in the extreme. Unfortunately, Russ and I were caught up in this pattern for years. I could simply be irritated at him, and I would be in what he would call a funk. Russ would ask me, "What's wrong?" And I would say, "Nothing, I'm fine." And do you really know what fine means? It means frustrated, irritated, not engaging. So next time you say fine, remember what you might be saying. Why wouldn't I simply address what was bothering me? I grew up avoiding conflicts, so it was easier for me to bear it on myself than to have a discussion about it. Perhaps this is where your husband might land. I wasn't used to sharing my feelings, and when I did, it never felt safe for me to bring it up. You could call me a turtle when it comes to conflict. We had to learn about emotional safety. When we were asked if we were an emotionally safe couple, I replied quickly that I was, and Russ wasn't because of his verbal command of the English language. Russ was more like the tiger in our conflict. Little did I know, Russ was walking on eggshells with me. Like, how in the world was I unsafe when I was the nice one who didn't say anything in a fight, and I would check out to avoid any more pain or hurt? And that was exactly why I wasn't safe. If I was told something I didn't like or didn't want to talk about or it hurt my feelings, I shut down and ignored him. So Russ got to the point where he kept things to himself to avoid me shutting down. It wasn't until I learned that ignoring and shutting down on my spouse was just as damaging as the spouse being critical, defensive, or showing contempt. I was sincerely shocked. So we came up with an approach that has worked for us, and it might work for you too. It does require you to be more vulnerable in your approach, more empathetic, and definitely in a calmer state of mind. If Russ finds me in a mood where I'm distancing myself from him, he'll ask me if I'm okay. And if I'm not prepared to address the situation, I'll share I need some time. This is important for someone who withdraws. We really do need the time to process and allow our system to calm down. There is scientific evidence that you both need a timeout to do something separately and come back when you're restored. This could be 20 minutes or even longer. Now, we do recognize this can be difficult when you're a parent to little ones. Addressing the conversation is a whole other video that I share here, but let me end with some reasons why your partner might be ignoring you. Number one, they haven't learned how to express themselves when feeling upset. Number two, they've been punished in the past for sharing their feelings. Number three, they don't feel emotionally safe. Number four, there's a tone or body language that keeps them shut down. And number five, you don't have a weekly rhythm that allows you to share frustrations that happen along the way so that you can address the little frustrations in order to prevent them from growing into full cups of resentment. Now, ladies, if you're frustrated that your husbands are shutting down on you, I do have a workshop where we address, and since I have the inside scoop on why I shut down, that might help you understand why your husband shuts down. Join me in the Wives Who Thrive workshop. If you're looking for a way to have a weekly check-in, but you're not quite sure how, check out this video here to take you through the step-by-step process. Remember, to have an extraordinary marriage, be intentional. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye-bye.